Thank you for the poetry and song, which has just cracked my heart open. And wow, you are a beautiful and awesome sight, I have to say. In the Jewish tradition, we have a blessing for every occasion, including seeing a huge gathering of people. I think today counts. So I open with that blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hacham harazim. Blessed are you, Eternal One, the knower of secrets. Just when you might feel anonymous, in a mass of people like this blessing reminds us that someone knows your innermost heart. Now, you might prefer that God or the universe or even your roommates didn't know all of your secrets. I get it. This is college. But in the spirit of revealing secrets, I'll share one of my own. I suspect that I was invited to speak here today because of the worst day of my life. On January 15th, 2022, I received a phone call from a rabbi in Cultivate, Texas. He and 3 others were being held at gunpoint by a man who came from England to free a notorious prisoner held in a federal prison just down the road. The gunman insisted on talking to me. When I got on the phone, he said I had 1 hour to deliver that prisoner to the Colleyville Synagogue, or else. When I told him that I might need a little more time, he parroted the age-old anti-Semitic trope of Jewish power and influence. You run the biggest synagogue in New York. Just make a few phone calls. Remember, he said, I love death more than you love life. My legs buckled under me. I had just heard the sound of a very dark heart. And I felt a tremendous responsibility for 4 people's lives and utterly powerless to save them. But over the course of that day, I also felt something else. I felt awe. I was awed by the steadiness of the rabbi who kept the gunman from shooting for over 10 hours. I was awed by the selflessness of the hostages who, when the gunman allowed one to go, each of them gave up their spot to enable the one they knew who couldn't run to be freed. I was awed by their sense of humor, especially the only non-Jewish hostage who said, if I get out of this alive, I'm definitely going to convert. I was awed by the rabbi's courage to throw a chair at just the right moment, which enabled the captives to escape with their lives. Now, rabbis are not usually in the hostage negotiation business, but we are in the awe business. Dacher Keltner, who is a professor at Berkeley, but we won't hold that against him, recently wrote a beautiful book on the science of awe. He surveyed thousands of people from 26 countries and found there were 8 wonders which consistently inspired awe in all people. They included music, we just experienced that, religious experiences, birth, death. These wonders are all a regular part of my work. But Keltner found that the #1 source of awe for all people across all cultures is a transcendent goodness he calls moral beauty. These are the experiences of courage, of extraordinary courage, sacrifice, resilience, kindness, that seen not only in crisis moments, but also in the more everyday struggles of being human. Turns out, our greatest source of awe is other people. And why does awe matter? Not just for a rabbi, but for every one of us. And how can each of us cultivate a little more awe in our lives every single day? The 20th century philosopher, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel said, "Our goal should be to live life in radical amazement, to get up in the morning and look around at the world in a way that takes nothing for granted. To be spiritual is to be amazed." I would argue that awe is the most important religious stance. Now, there's been a lot of research bemoaning the fact that your generation is the least religious in American history. Now, I don't necessarily worry if your generation doesn't have religion, although you might want to give it a shot. But I do worry if you walk through this world without a sense of wonder and awe. I remember a day I was walking in Central Park and I passed a college-age student wearing a t-shirt that read, "Born Bored." I wanted to pull her under the blossoming cherry tree she was walking past, totally oblivious, and yell, "You weren't born bored! No one is. Look up." Even if you're not standing under a beautiful tree, even if you are in the ugliest place in the world, physically or emotionally, you can still summon these feelings if you wake up to the fact that your very unlikely, beautiful existence is worthy of awe. I certainly feel that awe standing on this Stanford dais today, because though I never attended this great institution, it's an essential part of my story. My father was admitted here in the late 1950s, back when Stanford, we recently learned, actively suppressed Jewish enrollment. His family had fled the pogroms of Eastern Europe in the early 20th century and found their way to Tacoma, Washington, because they were woodworkers, and I guess the Pacific Northwest was where the trees were. But after the post-World War II building boom, the family business struggled. So after 2 years of Stanford, my father came home to the University of Washington because he could no longer afford Stanford tuition. But the pull of this place was too great. So he returned senior year, took out loans, and signed up for ROTC to pay them back. The Army stationed my father in South Korea. There, in his first year, he was invited to speak to a group of Korean students about college life in America. Now, I don't know if it was my father's charm, or his uniform, or his Stanford degree, but he caught my mom's attention. They came from radically different families, cultures, faiths, but somehow love prevailed. They got married, had 2 girls in Korea, and then moved back to Tacoma. As we grew up, my father didn't hide his desire to see his kids at a Stanford graduation. And my younger sister fulfilled that dream, graduating here in '97. All right, Gina, you're getting a shout out. I am so grateful that both my parents, my sister, and her entire family are here to see me on this podium today. Now, I may be here because a deranged gunman from England thought I was the chief rabbi of America. But as a biracial, immigrant Korean with a Buddhist mother raised in a tiny Jewish community, even that wild delusion is radically amazing to me. Awe helps me appreciate that my speaking at Stanford today is not random coincidence, dumb luck, or even a result of hard work. It is part of a much bigger design. There are powerful, mysterious forces and systems that have shaped me, for good and bad, and changed the course of my life in ways that I cannot fully comprehend. You see, my parents were married in 1968, only 1 year after Loving versus Virginia made interracial marriage legal in every state. I was born in 1972, which is the year that the first female rabbi was ordained in Jewish history. That same year, Yale University was only admitting 1 woman for every 7 men. But in 1972, Congress enacted Title IX, forcing schools across the country to bring equity for women. Yale came to parity barely a decade before I arrived on that campus. And I immigrated from Korea in the mid-1970s when Judaism's reform movement was just changing its attitudes and practices towards interfaith families like mine, from one of outright rejection to outreach and inclusion. Now, I still grew up being told that I couldn't really be Jewish with a face like mine. I spent a lot of my early years shuffling between Korea and America, trying to fit in, to belong somewhere. And I still hit a stained glass ceiling when I applied to lead my congregation with questions of how I would handle my job with 3 children, or whether or not I had the gravitas. I overcame these challenges and prejudices to become the first Asian American rabbi ordained in North America and the first woman to lead my congregation in its 180-year history. And I'm very proud. Thank you. Thank you. I'm proud of the work I have done, but I didn't do it alone. I stand on the shoulders of courageous rabbis, feminist activists, brilliant lawyers, wise policymakers, and visionary dreamers who smashed ceilings and changed laws and transformed cultures that enabled my very existence. Consider for a moment the stories from your own families and communities, those who fled persecution and war, who sacrificed their dreams for the sake of the next generation. Think for a moment of those who were segregated into degrading inequality, denied a job, a home, a vote. Those who couldn't pursue their own ambitions because of their race or gender or who they loved. Look around. Every one of us owes our very being to those who came before us. We know that some of them are here with you now, but many more are not here or nameless. But in this moment, you are the fulfillment of everything they've ever worked for, so that you could stand here today. How awe-inspiring is that? So I urge you, look up and look around, but don't forget also to look inside. Judaism teaches that each person is an entire world. Every one of you is here to do your part for something that is more lasting and significant than yourself. What you create will ripple out into the world in ways that you cannot possibly imagine. And while the vastness of awe can make you feel small, it also calls you to transcend yourself, to moral beauty. Remember, the greatest source of awe in the world is you. My hope for you as you leave this incredible place is that you live your life with radical amazement every day, to find it in the sublime and beautiful, but also in the quiet and mundane, and most of all, in each other. Understand that awe is not just a byproduct of an experience, like today. Awe can be a guiding orientation for a life of meaning, connection, and joy. And because I'm in the awe business, I'd like to create an experience of it together. We're going to create the wonder Keltner calls collective effervescence, which is moving together with shared attention. Now, my son, who graduated recently himself, was skeptical that I could get you all to do this with me, but I trust you're with me. Are you with me? Okay, all right. So, with gratitude to the brilliant choreographer Liz Lerman, who helped me conceive of this. So we're gonna start with you, graduates. Put your, anything you've got in your hands, put them down. And if you will, put your right hand on your heart. Our heart responds to experiences even before our brain does. So let's awaken our hearts to our first responders, to awe. So our first movement is the invitation to look up. So it looks like this. I want you to awaken your heart, and then first look up, and then reach. And as you do, you might be thinking, oh, I'd rather not be seeing a tarp, I'd rather see the sky, but take in the awe of the fact that you are sheltered in this beautiful tent of protection. Yes, so your turn, let's do that together. You're beautiful, here we go. Look up, then reach. Oh, beautiful. Then I invite you to look around. And when you do, I want you to, you're gonna watch first, you're gonna reach behind you, and as you do, I want you to reach back to your family and friends who are here, but I also want you to reach back to all of your teachers and coaches and clergy and all your ancestors who enable you to be the person standing here today. So let's try that. It goes like this. Beautiful. And now I want you to look inside. And here, watch first, you're gonna just draw out that from your beautiful heart, what you've got in there, and then open it up and look at that world that is inside of each one of you. Try that. Beautiful. And then we close by putting our hand to our heart, covering it with the other one. And let's just offer a little bow. It can be of gratitude, reverence, awe. Beautiful. So I want to show you, we're going to do this now kind of as a dance. So we're going to put them all together. Just remind you here, it goes like this. I want you to look up, to look around, to look inside, and then just take it in. So graduates, will you rise with me and do this dance of awakening to awe with me together? And we are going to do this in complete silence so that you can hear our collective heartbeats together. Here we go. So now, can I invite everyone who is here to please rise, including all the people on the stage. Let's use our left hand on the stage so that we're all making the motion together. And I invite you to awaken your heart to the awe of this moment, of this weekend, of your very lives. Let's take this all with us. And if you feel a hallelujah, I'll invite you to join in that too. Hallelujah, 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 Congratulations.